Today we're going to be installing the JounJip mechanical deadbolt lock. Hi, I'm JR with JounJip, and today we're going to walk you through installing JounJip mechanical keyless deadbolt lock. The first thing to look for when you unbox your lock is this card. This has the code for your lock. This is a random code that's preset at the factory, so you're free to use this and it will save you some steps. If you'd like to set your own code, we'll show you how to do that later in the video. Okay, let's take a look at the parts that we have for this lock. Primary keypad, secondary body, 2 seals, a deadbolt that has 2 slots, 2 3/8 or 2 3/4 setback, 2 different sizes of spindle, 2 screw extension posts, a latch support pin, 3 sets of screws, 50, 60, and 70 millimeter screws, a template that will attach to the door that will indicate where the holes should be drilled as needed. Next, we want to determine the backset. The backset is the distance from the edge of your door to the center line of this borehole, assuming you already have this borehole. It's usually 2 3/8 inches or 2 3/4 inches. This one is 2 3/8, so we'll need to know that for our template in the next step. Now find your template. In one corner it says left hinge door, and the other corner it says right hinge door. On our door sample, our hinge is on the left, so we have a left hinge door. So we're going to cut the template, or it's perforated, you can just separate it. And then we're going to fold along this blue dotted line, because blue line is for 2 3/8. The green one is if you have a 2 3/4 inch backset. And that fold goes right on the corner of the door. And then you notice this line here, center line of deadbolt. Make sure that this dotted line comes to the center of that hole. Once you know that it's in the center, then take a piece of tape Good. If you don't have this hole already drilled in your door already, what you can do is just tape this template to the door at the height that you want the lock at. You're going to need to drill the latch hole in the edge of the door. And so after you tape the template to the door, mark the edge of the door where this dotted line is coming across. That's going to show you where to drill the latch hole. When you drill this hole, the easiest way to do it is to buy at a hardware store or online a jig that will clamp to the door, and it will give you a guide so you can drill this hole nice and straight and level. And also it should come with a little 1-inch hole saw, so it will drill it out to the right diameter. And you're going to want that hole to be 3 3/8 inches deep. If you do have to drill out a latch hole, then you're going to need to create a 1/8 inch deep mortise here. That's this recessed cavity. So the way you do that is you trace around your faceplate of your latch, and then you take a knife and cut along the line that you drew, and then take a chisel and remove the wood 1/8 inch deep. And then your latch faceplate will be able to sit flush with the edge of your door. If the old faceplate had rounded corners, you may need to square the corners of the mortise on your door so the new faceplate will fit. Now that we have our latch hole drilled here, you need to drill out the holes in the front of the door. If you already have the borehole existing in your door, this large hole, then you don't need to drill these 3 holes here. You only need to drill the one in red here, and you need to notch this red mark there, shows you need to notch the bottom of the borehole. It's going to be easier to do that if you just pull your template off and then take your drill and just lay it on the bottom and run it to make that extra notch. If the borehole is not existing, then you'll have to drill these 3 holes and drill this hole here, the entire hole. It says to drill this hole out and these 3 out at 5/16. You can go a little bit bigger than that. The seal is going to cover up any of the holes that you're drilling. So if you make your hole a 3/8, even a 7/16, that will give you a little bit extra wiggle room so that if you drill your hole slightly off angle, not exactly straight, there's some extra play in there so everything can still line up with the lock. The next step is to install our latch. You'll see that it has up marked on the latch, so make sure that's up, and then insert it in here and install your 2 screws. You may want to drill a 1/16 inch pilot hole for these screws. That'll help them get started. Before we go any further, we want to test the lock, just to make sure it's working before we attach it to the door. I'm going to test it by pressing C first. Always press C to clear your lock, and then 6, 8, 4, 5, Z. And then when I turn the thumb turn, I'm going to watch this chamber right here and make sure that that turns. And it does. That verifies that the code works, the lock is working before we attach it to the door. If your hinges are on the right side, you don't have to do this step because this keypad comes from the factory set up for a right hinge door with the hinges on the right side. If you have the hinges on the left like ours, then you'll need to turn it over, and on the back we'll need to take these 2 green screws out and remove this little plate here, and then there's a pin inside that we have to move. So we'll want to do this over a surface because these screws are very small and it's easy to drop them, so do it over someplace where if you drop them you can catch them. Okay, and then it might be easy to get this out if you just maybe take a pen or something small and put it in there to pop that plate off. Now you'll see there's a pin right here. We're going to get some tweezers or needle nose pliers and pull this pin out and then move it over to this hole right here. You may need to turn the knob just slightly to get the hole to line up, to get it to go all the way in. So now our pin is on the opposite side for left hinge door. Again, if you have a right hinge door, this is not necessary. So let's go ahead and put our plate back on and reinstall the screws. Before we install our seal, we're going to place it against the door and just make sure that our holes line up with the seal. Okay, and they do. Great. The seal has 2 small holes that, if you prefer, you can attach the seal directly to the door. This option is more advanced because you need to get your seal in exactly the right position, and so that can be tricky. What we recommend is to attach the keypad to the seal using blue painter's tape. So now the next step is to install the screw extension posts into the back of the keypad. I like to take a wrench and give it just a little bit of an extra turn to make sure they're nice and snug. So one thing we've added since we first made this video is now the lock comes with these screw extension sleeves that go on the screw extension posts. And this will make the screws easier to get started when you attach it to the door. Next, find your latch support pin. That's going to go in one of these 2 holes here. You want to put it in the hole that's going to line up with this hole in your deadbolt. And you may need something with a grip to screw this in because it's not much to grab onto. Next, we need to insert the spindle. If your door is 2 inches thick or less, then you want to use the 80 millimeter. If it's 2 1/8 inches or thicker, then you want to use the 99 millimeter. If your door is more than 2 1/2 inches thick, you're going to need to order the JounJip flat spindle extension kit, available online. Our door sample here is 1 3/8 inches thick, so we're going to use the shorter spindle, and we're going to put the end with the spring into the back of the keypad. You'll notice that the slots in the deadbolt latch are at an angle between 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock. So you'll need to insert the spindle into the keypad so it matches that same angle. If you're inserting the keypad on the other side of the door, the angle will be between the 8 o'clock and the 2 o'clock position. There's 2 slots. One is for 2 3/8 inches backset, and one is for 2 3/4 inch backset. And you can see as we insert the spindle into the latch, the screw extension post at the top and the bottom are going to fit into the top hole in the notch we created in the bottom of the bore hole. If you're doing this by yourself, it might be easier to just take some tape and tape it to the door to hold it in place. Now we're ready to attach the secondary body to the other side. Before we do that, let's just figure out what screws we need. We have 3 sizes of screws, 50, 60, and 70 millimeter screws, depending on how thick your door is. The spindle has to go inside this chamber on the secondary body, so you have to make sure that it is turned the right way. If it's not, you can just turn the thumb turn the other way to line up with your spindle. So then we line up the spindle and slide it into the chamber. I usually start with the bottom screw because it's easier to line up. If you look inside here, you can see the screw extension that we're trying to put the screw into. Don't tighten it all the way yet. When installing the top screw, it's better if you get a flashlight, and then that can help you line everything up, and it makes it easier to get the screw started. Again, don't tighten it all the way yet. We can remove our tape. We want to make sure that our keypad and our secondary body are nice and straight. We also want to make sure that as you look at both sides, that they're level across from each other, that one side is not higher than the other. And then once we're sure that everything is lined up very straight, then we'll go ahead and tighten up the screws the rest of the way. To operate the lock, if you're on the inside of the door, all you need to do is turn the thumb turn to lock it and unlock it. From the outside, to lock the lock, just turn the thumb turn. To unlock, press C, clear the lock, then enter your code, and then turn the thumb turn. The lock comes from the factory with a random preset code, which you're welcome to use. But if you don't want to use that, then before you put the lock on the door, you want to change the code. The Deadbolt lock has a QuickCode system, and on the back of the keypad you can see that next to each number in the hole there is a disk. Half of it's red and half of it's plain. When the red is turned towards the number, then that number is part of your code. When the red is turned away from a number or letter, then that is not part of your code. Let's say we want to change the code on this keypad. Currently it's set to 3468X. So if you can see in there, the red side of the tumbler is turned towards 3 and 4. It's turned towards 6 and 8, and it's turned toward X. Everything else the red is turned away from. So we're going to get our screwdriver that came with the lock. Let's say we want to change the code to 1289. So we're going to turn the tumbler 180 degrees so the red is facing 1. Do the same with 2. And 8, we already have the red facing the 8. The 9 will turn, and then everything else will just turn the red tumbler away from that number or letter. So now you can see our code is 1289. Thank you for buying a JounJip brand lock. We hope this video helped you. If you have any questions or you run into anything, please give us a call. We'd be happy to try to help. See you next time. Thanks.